Welcome. New room, quite excited about being in a different room. Does anyone want a pipe cleaner to play with during this? No, there's got to be at least one fidget in here. Yeah? Yes, please. Yeah. Only if it helps you concentrate, then don't. That's the idea. Yeah. Right, I would like you, please, to tell the person next to you the worst thing that you did at school. What is the worst thing that you did at school? Did you get in trouble for, or you didn't get found out maybe? Can you remember? Okay, that's all the time you've got. Time up, you haven't told it now, sorry. Let's have one story from this side. Who's wanting to share their story? Come on. No?
Yeah, I'll share.
Go on then.
I don't like myself for it. I was quite small when I was at school, so the older boys used to threaten me, basically. They would say, I'll bully you if you don't go bully other kids. Right. So, yeah, I'm not very proud of that. But that's
Okay, fair enough. There's a reason behind it. Okay, and one from over here.
Stuck my tongue out at the French teacher.
Did you get detention?
No, but I just felt awful because she saw me do it.
That's the worst thing. That's
just felt
quite a clean school.
Terrible.
I was part of 8M, which year 8, it's different up here, isn't it? School. Anyway, my class was the class that they had special staff meetings about because our class was so naughty. Obviously, I wasn't involved in anything. But yeah. Right, okay, next question. Can you define challenging behaviour? You have 30 seconds to talk about it. I know that's not long. Go. Okay, I am not going to get feedback. I'm going to tell you the dictionary/Wikipedia definition of this. Culturally abnormal behaviour of such an intensity, frequency or duration that the physical safety of the person or others is likely to be placed in serious jeopardy, or behaviour which is likely to seriously limit use of or result in the person being denied access to ordinary community facilities. That is the definition of challenging behaviour. We like to box people in, don't we, and try and understand them, but challenging behaviour is not a diagnosis. And actually, it doesn't really say anything other than I don't know what to do with this child. And actually, a lot of the time, we're not really talking about behaviour worthy of that definition, are we? There's so much talk in the media about challenging behaviour, about ASBOs and SEN and ADHD and ASD, and we automatically brand children as challenging if they're causing us a few issues, because they're not engaging and therefore they're naughty, so we put them in the they're challenging box. The problem with this negative labelling that we so quickly do is that there is this vicious circle. Negative labelling results in poor self-esteem for that child, which then results in low expectations of themselves and what others expect from them, which then means that they have fewer chances, which then means that their skills deteriorate, or what they, who they are, they get worse at stuff, which then means it reinforces the stereotype that they're challenging, which means they get more negative labelling, and it goes round and round and round. What we need to do is be as positive as we possibly can to children, especially the ones that are challenging to us, because have you all got that? I can send it around later if that's helpful. Because positive feedback results in improved self-esteem, which we then have higher expectations of these children, which then gives them more opportunities, which then improves their performance, which then reinforces the positive image, which then means they get more encouragement, more positive feedback. We've got to see past the behaviour. After all, we're first talking about a child and second about how they're behaving. But I think it's helpful for us to think what might be going on with the child. Why might their behaviour be like this? And we always need to remember it's us that is being challenged. It's us that can't cope with whatever it is. In many ways, it's us that's got the issue, not the child. What behaviour do you find a challenge? You shout any out? What things do you find difficult to deal with? Obviously, you'll find everything really easy to deal with. Disruption, okay.
Somebody talking when you're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Running away.
Running, yeah.
Cheating or
Sorry?
Bitching or
Yeah.
Cheekiness.
cheekiness, activeness. So, what is it that might make children display behaviour that we might find challenging? Okay, so we're going to go through a few different things. I am going to go through this quite quickly. Hopefully you'll stay awake because it's post-lunch. You won't have the slump. If you feel the need to stand up and walk around to keep yourself awake, feel free. Doesn't bother me. First, environmental. Is it too hot in the room? Very simple. If a child is too hot, they are going to react out of the norm. Is it too cold? Are they trying to run around because they're freezing and they're trying to warm up? What about the lighting? Fluorescent lights are not conducive really to children being in a good place. You know, how can we make the lighting better? Is it too bright? Is it too dark? If it's really dark, they can't see what's going on, then they're going to play up because they want to be doing something else. Are they comfortable or not? Do they need the toilet? You know, the environmental factors for children, they don't always know what's going on, but if they're hungry or they're thirsty or they need the toilet, it's going to massively impact their behaviour. My little girl, who I've talked about already, Tilly, she has had quite a problem with going to the toilet for her whole not being in nappy life. And her behaviour when she needs to go, you know she needs to go. She's really fidgety, she's really agitated, she flails around, but she can't bring it. She's got like this phobia of going to the toilet. She can't bring herself to actually go, but once she does, she's like a different child. So there's things like that, not that extreme necessarily, but there will be children that they don't want to miss out, so they're not going to the toilet, and so they're not engaging because they're concentrating so much on not wetting themselves that they can't do anything else. So environmental is a big factor and actually quite easy to fix. Second, intellectual. Do we have a massive age range that we're trying to engage, which potentially means that we're not really engaging any of them? Are they bored? I think this one will answer a lot of our challenges, actually. It's our fault that they're misbehaving because we're not doing enough to engage them. If they're bored, they're going to do something else because they haven't learnt the social graces to sit still and look like they're interested like we have when we're older. Intelligences is the last one. Howard Gardner, you heard of him? He has a theory of 7 different types of intelligence, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Look it up, Google him. Howard Gardner, 7 types of intelligences. I haven't got time to talk about it all now. But it's about the fact that we all have intelligence. It might not be academic intelligence, you know, writing or reading, but for example, a professional footballer will have bodily kinesthetic intelligence, probably, which means they're very aware of their body, they can control their body very well. You might not classically say that they were intelligent in the classic sense, but their body is intelligent. So everybody is intelligent, but in different ways. And how we lead, naturally, will be in a way that makes sense to our type of intelligence, because that's easy for us to do. But actually we want to try and do lots of different ways of doing things to engage other different sorts of intelligence. Who knows who this is? Come on, you remember you have to talk to me. Who's this? Einstein, good. Most of us would say that Einstein was a genius, correct? Yeah, okay. Einstein did not speak until he was 4 years old. He didn't read anything until he was 7. He was seen as slow and antisocial at school, and eventually was expelled and refused admittance to a polytechnic, to a uni. The next is physical or biological. Are you asking a 3-year-old to do something they can't physically do until they're 7? You know, if you ask a child to do something they physically can't do, they're going to do something else. Do they need something? Again, do they need a biscuit? Do they need a drink? Have they had any water today? Do they need something to keep them going? Or is there already a diagnosis in place? Is this a child who has a learning difficulty or a behavioural issue? 1 in 5 children are now diagnosed with some sort of special educational need. Are you aware of these needs? If so, are you prepared? Do you know what you're dealing with? Can you get some training? Can you speak to the parents? Can you speak to the school? There's a lad at our church called Jojo, and he is not diagnosed with anything, but in my mind he has ADHD. I think his parents don't want to get the label, which I can understand. But you know, you have this constant, we are constantly, right, he's off, he's gone, right, we need to think of something else, how can we, like you're constantly doing this to try and engage him, but because we know that he's that child, it's just his brain can't concentrate on it for any longer, so we need to have something new, we need to help him do something else. And if you're aware, then you can help the child engage. Okay, emotional or physiological. Do they resent being there? Do you have a child in your group, or more than one, who have been forced to come to church by their parents, forced to be at your group, and they just don't want to be there? It is likely that you will get some, I think. How can we help them to have fun? Can you give them a job to do? You know, thinking, how can we fix that? Make them not resent it somehow. Attention seeking. Are they genuinely desperate for someone to pay attention to them? What background have they come from? You know, is this child one of 8 children of a single mum, and they've come to your group and they're playing up because actually they just want someone to pay them attention for a little bit? And it's not that it's that mum's fault that she can't spread herself that thinly all the time. Or are they having a bad day? We all have bad days, don't we? And that's okay. Most children in the world can display challenging behaviour, I think, when they've just got out of bed the wrong side. We had an incident on the school run a couple of months ago with Tilly, my eldest, who generally is fairly compliant on the school run. She holds onto the pushchair, she walks nicely, you know, it's all fine. But on this occasion, we left school, and looking back on it, I remember she said, "Oh, Edward's up there, can we go and walk with Edward?" But at that point, Zach and Eli had both run off in the playground, and I was like, "No, we've got to get the others." So I'm like, "Zach, Eli, come here!" across the playground with hundreds of children. Eventually got Zach and Eli together, and Tilly was in a grump from that point. I also look after my friend's little boy, who is just under 1, on a Wednesday. So I got him on my back in a sling thing, 2 boys in the pushchair, and Tilly supposedly walking with me on the pushchair, holding the pushchair. And we got a little bit down the road, and she was obviously in the grump, but I was kind of ignoring it. We got across the road, and Nathaniel, who was on my back, pulled Tilly's ponytail, like a proper yank, so that her head went like this. And I did the fatal thing of laughing, because it was funny. Like, she looked funny, and that was it. The meltdown, oh my word. She was kicking, she was screaming, and she's tall, she's got really long legs. And she was having this serious meltdown, and I was like, we've got to get home. You know, we've got 3 other boys here, we need to get home. I was calm for quite a long time. In fact, I think I managed to stay calm, which must only be God's help, because there's only so long you can stay calm in that situation. But, so we got about probably 10 metres in about 20 minutes. Like managing to get her to walk a little bit, but then she wouldn't hold on to the pushchair. And we live on a really busy road, and I'm not letting her walk off or she's got to be with me. And she wouldn't, and she was sitting on the floor, she was screaming. You know, I'm like, I'm one of those mums, I've got one of those children, she's right here. And in the end, I just stood there, and the boys in the pushchair were being brilliant, bless them. They obviously knew it was not time to play up. But they sat there very calm, and eventually, a guy from the garage over the road came over, shouted to me from across the road, and went, "All right, love," and I was like, "No." And he went, "Do you want some help?" This guy I'd never met, must be an angel. And he came over and he pushed the pushchair for me all the way home, which was another mile down the road, while I literally dragged Tilly. So she stayed in the meltdown, so I managed to hold, it's awful really, but I had to get her home, and she wouldn't walk. So I was just holding her, and you know when your arms go fizzy because you've got no strength left? So halfway home I was like, "Come on." But by the time we got home, she'd relaxed and given in and was holding on to me, and it was fine. But I was carrying one on my back and one on my front. Anyway, but she's not like that normally, but that one moment where I didn't recognise she wanted to walk with Edward caused the chaos that came afterwards. And actually, I think that bad day was triggered by that one little thing. Anyway, long story, but it was a good one. Okay, social. Are they insecure? Are they a child who is worrying about what others think of them? Do you just not get on? Leaders is one. You know, is it just that you and that child don't get on? That's okay, find another leader who can hang out with that child. Oh, sorry. And are they just out to make your life miserable? In which case, you've got a real challenge on your hands. And finally, spiritual. Are we talking in a load of weird language which they don't understand? Can we get away from the jargon? Are we in a church, I don't know your churchmanship, but are we in a church that is a bit experiential? Are they a bit freaked out by something that's happening in church? Again, I don't know your churchmanship, but could this be some sort of spiritual attack? So very quickly, they are some of the reasons why the behaviour might be a challenge to you. And it's not exhaustive. But then, what do we actually do when we are presented with a situation? Or 5, all at once. First job. Seriously, write it down. If you're writing notes, write it down. All it takes is for you to stop, pause, breathe, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. They're going to keep going whatever you're doing, but that moment, quick arrow prayer, help, God help. It's going to make all the difference. I've got a bit of a mantra. My font's gone funny, so this was a nice chalkboard font, but it's not transferred from my computer. It doesn't look very nice, sorry. But this is my mantra when it comes to dealing with challenging lovelies. Love, consistency, and persistency. It is sometimes hard to love those who challenge us, but they, just like us, are created in God's image. And they need to know, just like we do, if not more, of God's love for them. My heart is absolutely for the scallies, the ones that don't fit the box. I love the challenge that they give me, but it doesn't mean it's not hard work. And it's tiring, and some days you're just like, oh, I've got no love left for you. But love is absolutely crucial. And if you are finding it difficult to love a child, then give them to someone else for their responsibility. You know, if you've got to the end of everything, pass them to somebody else for a bit. There's nothing wrong with that or saying, I can't do it anymore. Consistency is tricky. Eli, you've heard about him already. He would probably be a child that you would call one with challenging behaviour in your group. I know he's only 2, but it's more than just the 2-year-old challenges. Do you know what this sort of thing comes in Super Nanny, where, you know, that whole, they get out of bed, you just keep putting them back in. 72 times is quite a lot of times. I decided, so Eli doesn't sleep very well. He sleeps fine, but he gets up really early, and I'm not okay with that. And so I decided, right, this morning I'm going to keep putting him back in bed until 6:30, which is the time that I deem is appropriate to get out of bed. And so I kept putting him back in, and I did it, and we made it to 6:30. But the next day I was like, oh, I'm too tired, I can't do it. And it's a complete waste of time, absolute waste of time, because I wasn't consistent with him. And actually, if you set a boundary with the child, even if you disagree with it later, you've set that boundary, so you've got to stick to it. And Super Nanny would agree, I think. As hard as it is, if you choose to set a ban for certain behaviour, you've got to stick to it. We ran a youth group for 11 to 14s at a church we worked at about 10 years ago, and we had 70 11 to 14-year-olds on a Thursday night for 2 hours. And there was this little group, Sammy and his mates, and they were proper scallies. They were not churched at all, and they came and were disruptive, basically. That's what they came to do. And I spent a lot of time with them out in the foyer of the church, you know, just hanging out and playing games, and they wouldn't engage. But then there was one week where they basically created a huge fight, and there ended up being about 30 kids having this fight, fueled by Sammy and his friends. And so that was worthy of a ban. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, is saying, sorry, you're not welcome next week. And I was like, you are really, but you can't come back. You know, this whole, I really want you to be here, but I'm not going to let you. And actually they did come back the week after, and it was fine. So I think you've got to stick to the boundaries that you make. And don't give up either. Building relationships with those children who don't fit the nice mould takes time, but is absolutely crucial. Sammy and his friends, a couple of years later, all became Christians and started to come to church. And my husband sat with them in church when they came every Sunday. Bless them. I mean, why they came, because it was boring, but they wanted to because they'd become Christians. It was incredible. But he sat with them every Sunday and talked to them through the whole service. So, well, we're doing this because, and I don't really know where they're at, but I hope that they're continuing in their journey. But yeah, right. I've got lots of stories, but I'll try and keep them short. Who's this one? Churchill, okay. So Nobel Prize winning, twice elected Prime Minister, wasn't always as well regarded as he is today. So he struggled in school. He failed the 6th grade, so at the end of primary, before you go to big school. After school, he failed a lot in politics. He was defeated in every election for public office until he was 62 when he became Prime Minister. I suspect that there was at least one person in his life who didn't give up on him, who said, no, you can do it. I do believe in you. Yeah, you failed, so what? Let's have another go. Can we be those people to these kids who are a challenge? And often it's the ones who are the challenge to us that can be the best leaders. Jojo, the guy I mentioned earlier, who's got ADHD, everyone wants to be his friend. Everyone follows him. He's a great leader, but we've got to channel that energy that he's got and not give up on him when he's tiring. I don't know what the point of that was there for. I can't remember why that's there, but... Oh yeah, immediate fixes. So some quick kind of how we can fix a situation if it's happening right in front of us. The first thing is, if they're bored, do something else. Who cares about your programme? Sorry. I'm leaving tomorrow anyway. Throw in an extra activity. Have a load of games up your sleeve. You know, there's so much you can do. If they're bored, just stop doing it and do something else. Literally, all it could take is for you to say, and then take the next point, to move to a different location because something different has happened. And do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take a while. Or for you to say, right, everyone put your arms in the air. Or something that just distracts from that moment, removes that feeling of boredom, and then you've got them back in the room. And for a child, it's not a problem to go from something quite serious to something really hyper and exciting, back to something serious. Grown-ups, we find that difficult. We almost need to warm up, don't we? And cool down. Whereas kids, it doesn't bother them. So don't feel afraid to do that sort of thing. Different ability levels. So if you're playing a game, make sure you've got some different levels of ability, for different ability levels up your sleeve. You know, we want to be always ready to include those who maybe can't do it as well as other people. So, you know, if you're throwing beanbags into buckets, have one closer and one further away. You know, just so that the kids who might kick off if they can't do it, have more of an opportunity to be able to do it. Try to remove the child causing the issues and make sure the rest of the group don't miss out somehow. The ideal is that you have a spare person in every kids group that you run. I know that's not always doable. I have been known, it's not always the ideal, but if you're on your own, you know, get them to come and stand with you and help you do something. I know some people don't like it because it's almost glorifying the bad behaviour, but I kind of think if you can engage them and show them that you love them even in their bad behaviour, I'm okay with that, but that's up to you whether you think that's okay or not. Also, I've seen far too much public humiliation of kids, which I dislike a lot, because we go back to that negative labelling. You know, if you're pointing your finger and saying, you need to sit still, or you stop it, to one single child, you know, that's another negative label. They shouldn't get that when they come to a place where we're all about God. You know, we should be positively encouraging them, not pointing the finger and telling them that they're naughty, because chances are they're probably not, they're just struggling to engage. Remain calm. Getting angry and shouting generally is not going to achieve a great deal. Although it can be reserved for emergencies, actually. But if you're shouting the whole time, then it's not going to achieve anything. So my husband, Steve, at that youth group with the 11s to 14s, I was the loud one who was doing all the crazy stuff, and he was the more chilled one. He never did any of the shouting about stuff, you know. Right, everyone, you need to come in here. That was always me. You know, he was dealing with the ones who were on the fringe a little bit. But there was this one occasion where I don't know what had happened, whether they'd all had sweets for dinner or something, but they were climbing the walls like 70, 11s, 14s in a room this big, and honestly, I was like, Steve, I don't know what to do, what we can do. And the other leaders that we got, our volunteers, couldn't cope either. They were all like cowering in the corner. And Steve got angry, like he roared. And I have never seen a bunch of kids stop and sit down so quickly in my life, because they're like, uh-oh, Steve shouted, it must be serious. So I think if you don't shout, you have it reserved for those emergencies. And actually it didn't affect anyone's, you know, nobody got affected by it, but they knew that we were serious because we'd reserved. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not recommending getting angry or shouting, but, you know, sometimes. Respect. Don't be a pushover. You're the adult. You set the boundaries. And boundaries are helpful. Remember that you're not there to be their best mate. This is something I struggled with for quite a long time, because I wanted them all to love me, think that I was great, and actually that's not what we're there to do. Yes, you want them to love you, yeah, totally, you want to be able to have that relationship with them, but ultimately, if they're doing something that's unacceptable, then it's up to you to tell them that that's unacceptable, and if they don't like you for a little bit, it's going to have to be the way it is. If they're affecting someone else, another child perhaps. How can we avoid the situation? Love, consistency, and persistency. You've got to earn the right to speak into a child's life. I think if you have a child who runs around a lot, but you don't spend any time with them, you know, get up, run with them for a bit. You know, hang out with them where they're at. If that's what they need to do it with them. You know, and actually earn the right to say, okay, we've run for a bit, now can we sit down for a couple of minutes? So-and-so wants to talk to us. I used to work on a camp. What time did we finish?
50 minutes.
Okay. I used to work on a camp with a lot of children who came recommended from social services. And there was this one lad who was a really troubled little boy, and he climbed onto the top of a wall. It was on a farm, this camp. He climbed onto the top of the wall that was probably, it was higher than that middle wood bit there. And was standing on the top and said, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to jump off. He was 8. And I was like, no you're not, please don't do that. And I tried to talk this kid down, he was having none of it, and he kept getting closer and closer, and I was like, I can't do it, I'm failing him, he's going to jump, he's going to at least break his leg, jumping that high. What happened in the end was that I sent for his small group leader, his tent group leader, and his tent group leader came, and he said, oh, come on mate, you need to get down from there, you're going to hurt yourself. And because he'd got that relationship, that was all it took, and he got down. And that was it. But I was trying to build a relationship while he was in that tricky situation. It's not going to work. You know, you need the relationship before you get to crisis point. So yeah, run around with them, make noise with them for a bit. You know, do activities that they want to do. Yeah, or build them into your programs at least. A clear, consistent strategy across the board is absolutely crucial. Decide as a team what your strategy is for that particular child. Have a notebook that you pass between you, so you know that one week, because obviously you don't all do every week, do you, with the kids groups or whatever groups you run. You know, have a book where you write down how you dealt with the situation, so that when the next leader comes, they'll know how to be consistent. Have a meeting, go out for a meal and decide what your strategy is going to be, because you've got to be doing it together. If you're really struggling, find out what the school does to help them. It's a great way of building relationships with the local school as well. You know, how do you help this child to engage, to cope with school? Be well prepared. One thing that I always do, and I think people think I'm weird, is I always expect everything that we do to work. So I go into an event or to a kids group and I think this program is great, it's going to work. And I think that actually impacts how the kids react to what you're doing. If you're going in thinking, oh, I'm not sure this is going to work, or so-and-so's not going to engage with this bit, well, they're probably not going to. It's a shift in mindset, a positive sort of switch you need to turn on in your head. I don't know what any of these oh, there's just a road. Oh, there we go. Positive reinforcement. Just go over the top. Be encouraging about every little thing. Positive. If they sit still for a minute, say, oh, great, well done, you sat still for that. Now let's do something active. Find a way to do it publicly as well. I think we're quick to be negative publicly, but it's more of a challenge for us to be encouraging publicly. But it's really important. Why shouldn't we tell people that they're great in front of other people? Okay, now this one is an important one. Triggers. There will probably be certain triggers for children that might be more challenging. Find out what they are and don't go anywhere near them. And actually, what happens often is the fuss. So the fuss that happens with an incident is often a trigger for children like that we might class as challenging. So, for example, if you're having a meal and you drop a plate of food, it's the fuss that happens while everyone's trying to pick up the plate and go, oh, you dropped a plate, that might trigger the negative reaction in the child who's dropped the plate. Whereas actually, what you need to do is say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, come on, let's go and get you some more. Take the child away, clear up the mess. A child who knocks over a pot of paint and gets it on someone else's picture, accident, but that could trigger a massive reaction in both children. Take them both away, someone clear up the mess. Yeah? Remove children from the situation, don't create fuss. Zachary, our middle one, is full of testosterone as a 4-year-old. It's ridiculous. He's like got a six-pack and everything. I don't know what's happened to him. He's turned into some sort of machine. But he has these flares where he literally can't control his hormones and he doesn't know what to do with himself. And he gets like rage and emotion all at the same time. It's like he wants to destroy everything and also wants to cry about everything all at once. Bless him. Like, it's horrible to deal with as a parent, but for him it must be horrendous. And afterwards, one time, after this one where it had been about 40 minutes of him having this episode, he'd calmed down and he'd said sorry and it was all fine. And I said, Zachary, what happened? Why did, what happened? And he just said, my body felt funny, Mummy. So actually, that's quite articulate, I think, for him to say. It was like he couldn't stop it. And that happens. So these triggers get kids to a place where they literally can't stop their body doing stuff. So, yeah, find them and avoid them. Long term, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Be with them in the moment. Have you seen Inside Out? Yeah. This moment is a beautiful moment where, I don't know if you have seen it or not, but he loses something that's really important to him, and there's a character called Joy, and she's trying to cheer him up, and actually this is Sadness, the blue one, and she doesn't try and cheer him up, she sits with him and says, oh, that's really sad, and they share in the sadness together. We need sometimes to have that moment where we go to them and say, yeah, if they're angry, be angry with them. Like I said before, run around with them. If they're sad, be sad with them. Share in that moment. Don't try to distract them from it. And actually, he comes out of it, doesn't he, in the film? So eventually, after they've shared that sadness, he picks himself up and says, okay, let's go. You don't have to do anything. Just be with them in the moment. Allow them to be. Yeah, it's not always ideal, is it? Let's be honest. So Eli, again, he just doesn't sit, ever. So to try and get him to eat is a right challenge. So sometimes it works for you to sit at the table with the spoon and he literally runs around the lounge, comes back, you shove food in his mouth, he runs, comes back, you shove food in his mouth. I'd rather he ate so that he slept. That's my kind of thinking. And Tilly the other day was like, why can't I run around when it's dinner time? And I was like, well, actually, Tilly, you know, I've explained it better than this, but she's responsible for her actions, isn't she? And we need to explain to kids that you need to own how you behave and not worry about everybody else. And I think that's key. And actually, he misses out on pudding because he's running around, so his loss. Be open to things that sound wrong. So, I experienced a young person who brought their handheld, like it was a PS4, to youth group because he was a nightmare before he brought that. He wouldn't engage, he disrupted discussions, he just wasn't part of it. And then when he started to bring his PS4, his mum suggested it, and I was like, really? That's going to be a bit of a distraction. She was like, well, try it. He brought it, and he sat and he played games through the whole youth group, but joined in the discussion, and actually said valid things, and was part of it, because that's how he needed to engage. But you would naturally say, well, of course you can't bring a games console to youth group. But for that particular child, that's what he needed to enable him to engage. If you're in a massive room, that could be causing it. You know, divide your room into smaller rooms, use chairs. If you're in tiny rooms, find a bigger one, go outside. You know, try different things. Experiment till you find something that works. Be yourself, and don't forget this. You forget everything else that I've said, because I know it's post-lunch. Remember this. This is the crucial thing. So, questions, go. That was an hour and a half session in 45 minutes, by the way.
Sorry, if we were to allow that one kid to bring his console,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be a question by the other kids as well? Can we get our camera and come in?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to go as extreme to the console.
Yeah,
You
no.
can go for other things that might help. We surprisingly didn't have a problem because the discussion and the youth group was better because of it. So I think the other young people recognised that helped. I think I was amazed by their reaction. I thought I'd get that. Why can't I bring mine? But we didn't get any of it. Or maybe you make a special thing, so once a month they all get to bring something for half an hour and you can all play weird games together, and then, do you know what I mean? I think I was surprised anyway how little they cared.
That might work in a youth group, but it wouldn't work in that.
No, it wouldn't work in the kids group necessarily, no.
We know that from experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you do if you're working with young people, like for example, a project that I work on, I'm respected by young people, but my colleague isn't respected by young people, and they are a bit younger, they're like 18, 19, and these other young people are teenagers, and this 18, 19 does not get any respect whatsoever. He's trying to know the wrong stuff, so what do you do in that situation? Because we're trying to talk to them, we're trying to get them to create their own rules, and nothing's.
Any ideas?
I have a young person that works with me, and I was worried that she wouldn't be able to manage the group. I worked with kind of 6, 7, and she was only 15, 16 at the time, and I thought, this isn't going to work. But it comes from her. She just tells them, you can't behave like that, don't behave like she just, and they kind of learn to respect her, and that's true. I think it's really that's the problem.
It's like we've tried everything. We've looked online, we've asked people. And
Have you tried giving him responsibility for a bit of the session? So give him something. Okay, give him something new. Do something brand new, something really exciting, and he leads it, and they have to listen to him to get the most out of it. Still do a new thing. If he's been doing art for a while, like something brand new, something like he's in charge of get a Wii in and do some computer games or something. But he's in charge of that thing, and if they want to do it, they have to listen to what he says, and then do that and change it again. You know, so keep giving a new thing with him leading it, and then hopefully eventually then they'll get used to listening to him, and you'll be able to infiltrate it into the rest of stuff. Yeah.
It's not a question. I think I'm a teacher. Bill Gribble is a very good person to refer to in some that online. He talks about the ABCD autism beforehand, and the behaviour, and then there's the consequences. Your body language can tell a lot as well,
Yeah.
and that's really important. Your language. So from a Christian point of view, if you're labeling someone, you are disruptive. You know, like in your mind, then they are disruptive in
Yeah.
your mind, and that's not how God sees them. So that's
Yeah.
important. Also, tactically ignoring, taking its called. So like you said, if your son going around, you're tactically ignoring that because the main objective is to get food to that kid. And then in consequences, so there would be obviously good consequences and bad consequences, and varying degrees, and reward is really important.
Yeah.
And then Bill talks about least intrusive to most intrusive. So, obviously the worst behaviour would be the most intrusive.
Yeah.
For example, you move physically right beside them and invade their space. This is a teaching type of thing, and they find that uncomfortable. And you might not say anything, but you just, and then you'll find that behaviour will stop because you're right there.
Mm.
And then the least intrusive, is kind of smaller stuff. I've forgotten what that is, but that's something to look at. Least intrusive to most intrusive. Bill Gribble. Without a doubt, one of the best workshops I've ever attended in 19 years of teaching.
I think that's really helpful, thank you. There is a line that we need to be careful as well with making sure that we're not like school and not like teachers. And I think that we're in a privileged position, I think, in a church context, because we don't have to make sure that they achieve something, and we don't have to stop them having fun to learn something. We can let them have fun for a week and learn something the next week. It's not really the end of the world. So I think, yes, absolutely, I agree with what you're saying, but just be careful when you're taking teacher advice, because that's not what we are.
We use that most intrusive, and I'm now realising the reason why our kids don't sit is because we're boring them. We do an all-age kind of gathering at the beginning, and then we split into smaller groups. We're finding the middle age range really struggling to sit still long enough for us to do this all-age thing. So obviously we have to look at that now and figure out why.
Mm.
But I just sit in between the boys. They don't like it, but it's the easiest and quietest way to stop the mucking about.
Yeah, but for me, I kind of think we're not doing enough. We shouldn't have to get to that point.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But I can then go back and say the reason these boys are behaving like this is probably because they're going to tears.
Yeah.
But we've just been looking at the problem, fixing the problem
Yeah.
at hand, rather than looking at why is there the problem.
Yeah.
So do you mind if I say something?
Yeah, no, we've run out of time.
But
But
in your situation, if you can go out on a street for the weekend and they see you not as a worker but someone else there, that's a really, like in school we talk about ethos. They get to be sponsored walks and they see you in a completely different environment. So when you come to classes, right, okay, you're doing this piece, you're reading that piece, oh, well, I've got a motocross magazine for you, I'll read that at the back, and you really get to know the kids and build up the relationship. Sorry.
and actually, that is part of it. Like, if you don't listen to kids and don't have fun with kids, they're not going to listen to you. And if we spend our whole time trying to teach them things, and not listening to them, they come in and they've got stuff that they've done in the week and they've got baggage with them and they want to talk to you about it. And if you're like, no, sorry, we've got this to do, or we've got this program to plan, then they're not going to listen to you, whatever you're saying, whether it's about Jesus or about whether they should sit. And also, one final little thing, and then I will stop because I know it's time, is, and this kind of comes back to the stuff that I harp on about all the time, but sitting still doesn't necessarily mean you're concentrating. We may have grown up in schools where if you didn't sit still, you were told off because you couldn't have been concentrating. But actually, a child who is fidgeting, it could be related to the fact that they're trying their best to engage and they need to, like I was playing with that through the whole thing because I am that sort of person, and actually I don't sit still because if I sit still, I concentrate so hard on sitting still that I can't engage with what I'm supposed to be engaging with. Whereas if I'm fidgeting, that relaxes my body enough so that I can engage. So I think we have to be aware of that as well, that fidgeting doesn't always mean, in fact it probably means that they're trying their best to engage, depending on the level of fidgeting. But can we pray and then coffee? Father God, we thank you for those children that challenge us. We thank you for the little characters and lives that you have created there. God, we pray for us now as we go to deal with them, to help them, to love them, that you will help us to love them extravagantly. and to be consistent and also persistent, to not give up on them, God, when other people might. We pray that you'll help us to just have the energy to keep going. God, we know that you love them, and we pray that you'll help us to love them as you do. In Jesus' name, amen.